Hello everyone and welcome on back to the channel. We have come to our very final elite specialization to talk about, and this is for the Ranger. We are going to be talking about the Galeshot today, one of my favorite elite specializations for Visions of Eternity that has some pretty cool profession mechanics, skills, and traits. So let's jump right into it by talking about the profession mechanic and moving forward from there. For the Galeshot, the biggest thing is your new F5 ability known as the Summon Cyclone Bow. This is a third weapon that you will always have access to no matter the occasion. You also maintain and retain both of your weapons, so you can swap between your two weapon sets. That's not being taken away. It's on demand, it's fantastic, it's lovely. Now this type of weapon has a bunch of long-ranged attack abilities, and you use most of these abilities by consuming arrows. Now for the Galeshot, you can hold up to 8 arrows at any given time. These replenish over time, but also will be replenished by using your utility skills that the Galeshot has access to, but we'll get into those in a little bit. As for the actual bow itself, you have an auto attack known as Keen Shot. This is just a 1200 range attack, has a nice animation, and also you will be like bursting with wind with a lot of these attacks. Your second ability is Bluster. Release a rapid fire volley of arrows. This is 3 arrows at a time, so it's much quicker packets of damage. Your third ability is Fleeting Zephyr. You'll jump back, releasing a blast of wind that destroys incoming projectiles. This is an attack and also an evade, along with a projectile destruction. So this is a very strong defensive attack that has a very short cooldown. Your fourth ability is known as, without the trait, it's known as Quarry's Peril, which is a AoE damage attack and immobilize. This is nice because it's not a projectile, so you can still use it against enemies that have projectile destruction effects. And then your fifth ability is the kind of almost a capstone ability. There's one other secret ability that we'll talk about after this. This is Supersonic Arrow. Supercharge an arrow with wind magic and then launch it at incredible speed. This is your big hit. It's huge damage with a daze. Actually, is it 3? Oh yeah, it's 3 arrows. Quarry's Peril will take 2. Supersonic Arrow will take 3. Now you might have noticed that each of these abilities has Wind Force attached to it other than the auto attack. Wind Force is a buff that you gain by using abilities that cost arrows. Now, you can stack up to 5 of these when using your abilities in combat, and we'll get to it in just a second. You get access to a new auto attack skill, which is your coup de grace. This is known as Hawkeye. You'll release a hail of arrows toward your target and nearby enemies as well. And in that radius around your target, it's 480, which is extremely forgiving for an AoE attack. Not only is it 1500 range that you can fire this from, but then in a massive radius around that target, you will hit and shoot multiple projectiles. So this is an extremely strong and extremely forgiving. Even from this range, it will strike the pink Moa. So we can cast it right now and see all those arrows just fly. Now let's talk about the utility skills. The Galeshot gains access to Squall abilities that all have their individual effects, but they also will all restore arrows for your Cyclone Bow as well. Your healing is Soothing Breeze, which will heal you and grant you super speed and remove conditions. Super speed and swiftness is an extremely important effect on this elite specialization, as when we get into the traits, you'll see a lot of damage modifiers for them. The first ability we'll talk about is Piercing Gales. You'll conjure a barrage of projectiles, and you'll deal damage against vulnerable foes, dealing increased damage against vulnerable foes. And also the projectiles will go faster if you have swiftness or super speed. Applying 15 stacks of vulnerability is super nice. Next, we'll talk about Whirlwind. Whirlwind is one of my favorite abilities. You'll launch yourself toward a location with a powerful gust of wind. This is an evade, a stun break. It gives you super speed, and it will regenerate an arrow. You get 2 charges of this, by the way. So it's great for moving to a location. It's great for sustain, survivability, and also upkeeping swiftness, I should say super speed on yourself. Next, we'll talk about Mistral. You'll summon a current of chilling northern air. Projectiles that pass through the current become frozen. chilling and dealing additional damage to enemies. This is a bubble that you'll place around you, either on top of you or a little bit outside of where your character is, and by shooting projectiles through it, you will cause additional damage and chill a foe. I don't believe this affects ally projectiles, it's just your projectiles. So it's just additional damage to pair with so many projectile skills that the Galeshot has access to. But it's not just the Cyclone Bow. Mistral will be activated by other projectiles such as your longbow, your short bow, axe abilities. Anything that you throw, also piercing gales, will take the effect of Mistral, dealing additional damage and chilling your target. And for the final utility skill, it is an additional stun break and Aegis application. It also will knock back enemies and destroy projectiles. It's Wind Shear. This is a pretty good spell. You know, it's solid. It's solid. What can I say? I tend to take the movement ability of Whirlwind more often than not, but if you're looking for a little bit more block and just creating that space around you, Wind Shear is a good choice. It also has a 20-second cooldown, which is very forgiving and a little bit faster than the Whirlwind ability. And then finally, for your elite skill, we have Perfect Storm. You'll summon a spell at a location that will charge forward, causing a tornado to be summoned. This will pick up any enemies along its path to the destination that you have selected. So we can see here that I'm going to position this further than the actual enemies, and it will be carried to that location. It also will persist in that area, dealing additional damage over time. And this damage is really nice. It's very convenient to have something that is going and rolling in its packets of damage as you're doing all of your other abilities with your Cyclone Bow and your other weapon abilities. Now let's talk traits with the Galeshot. For your miners, we have Bird of Prey. This is where some of those modifiers come in handy. Strike damage is increased when you have swiftness or super speed by 10%. Swiftness is more effective by 20%. Next, Jetstream. Your base movement speed is increased. Hawkeye, your final coup de grace Cyclone Bow ability, will give you super speed. So it's a lot of access to super speed, a lot of improvements for your movement speed. You become very difficult to catch. Swiftness is more powerful, and also you're dealing more damage if you have those movement effects. We have Joy of Movement. Squalls, your utility abilities, will remove movement impairing conditions and a damaging condition. Nice for survivability and sustain. Feel the Rush. Movement skills grant you swiftness and endurance. This is actually a really nice trait, even in PvE. Getting access to that swiftness gives you that 10% increased damage that you can just have passively rolling. And endurance is nice for extra dodge. And then this is your one and only damaging adept trait. We have Wuthering Wind. After using Bluster, which is your Cyclone Bow's second ability, your pet's next attack creates a damaging swell of wind around its target. And it's a good pocket of damage in a 180 radius. It can strike up to 5 targets. This is lovely because it's not when you use Bluster this effect pops. It's when you use Bluster, and then when your pet attacks, it will then use Wuthering Wind, making sure that this ability will almost always strike that particular target and any enemies around. To the Master Tier, Flock Together. Feathered pets have increased strike damage and health. Beast skills grant quickness around the ranger. So now whenever you pop your F2 ability, not only do you get the effects of your beast, but you're also going to be sharing out quickness in a nice area of 300. I think for the Galeshot, it probably could be 480 or 360, but that's just me. And then next we'll have Perilous Skies, which I somewhat previewed earlier on. But this transforms Quarry's Peril into Pelt, which is now a more ammo-based ability that gives you a few more charges of a non-projectile attack while you're in the Cyclone Bow, but you no longer gain access to that Immobilize. The damage does seem to be the same though. So you're just, instead of Immobilize, you're in favor of more AoE attacks rather than that lockdown effect. Then we have Thrill of the Cat. Restore arrows when you or your pet disable an enemy. So if you are struggling with your arrow management, if maybe you're not taking as many squalls, you can take this trait so that you can then keep firing. So it's just a nice little tool, utility trait to take if you want some more resource management. Now for the Grandmasters. So first we have Cloudburst. Quarry's Peril and Supersonic Arrow reset the cooldown of Bluster. So whenever you use your supersonic arrow or your fourth ability, to note, because if you do change this to pelt, it's not described as the same thing. But whenever you use your fourth or fifth ability while using the Cyclone Bow, you'll reset your Bluster, which is your second ability. There's a lot added to Bluster along Galeshot. Not only will it reset Bluster, but when you use Bluster or Hawkeye, you'll grant might and quickness around you in a 480 radius. I think this should be 600. I think the flock together should be 480 and the cloud burst should be 600 just because it's a Grandmaster trait. But if you are looking to play that damage role and also provide quickness, this is going to be the trait that you want to take. Might and quickness is so important, and you have little to no worry about keeping this up 100% of the time just because of how accessible your Bluster is while in combat. But having it be reset, it's on such a short cooldown anyways. It's on a 3-second cooldown and the base duration is 5 seconds. So you can keep it up 100% of the time, little to no effort. But then also the fact that your Hawkeye, your auto attack finale, gives you even longer duration. I mean, you're going to be totally fine with quickness and might application. Next, we'll talk about Gale Force. Wind Force grants stacking increased movement speed and damage. When you use Hawkeye, convert these into a stronger bonus for duration. So this just means that you are now using Wind Force and keeping it in mind as a damage buff, and to be more mindful of when you actually pop Hawkeye, because then that will give you an even stronger moment of passive damage. So we are at 5. I'm going to use it, and we can see that we'll get a special buff known as Gale Force. This is will increase our damage even further, meaning that we're just going to be dealing so much more damage, killing our targets so much faster. It's a nice passive buff, and you're using Wind Force so often and using Hawkeye quite often if you can build it up, that it's just going to be nice to have. And then finally, if you really want to go passive, not just for the Cyclone Bow, but for other projectiles, you want to take Shrike. After a number of missile hits, after 12 missile hits, release a volley of arrows at your target and gain an arrow. So not only is this doing just additional passive damage with a range of 2,000, it's also generating an arrow for you. So this means your damage passives are just going to be super strong, and your arrow generation is going to be stronger. And also, this is just like on any projectile. It's not like it has to have a cooldown, it has to cost a resource. It's just projectiles, meaning your auto attacks will be building up this Shrike. The only downside to Shrike that I would have to say is that there is no counter for it that you can see on screen. It would be nice if something like Wind Force was above the actual F5 bar, and then Shrike was something that was a buff that you could track. I have tested this. This will retain its count outside of combat, so it's not something you have to always be worried about resetting when you enter combat and when you leave combat. It does keep track of how many projectiles you have shot and fired. Now let's talk about the open world build that I have been running with. I've been running with a lot of dragon stats, longbow, spear, and then as for my traits, I'm taking skirmishing, marksmanship, and of course the Galeshot, primal reflexes, strider's strength, vicious quarry is what I'm currently running with, so a little bit fury, a little bit extra damage strikes, and then marksmanship, hunter's gaze, farsighted for increased damage at long range, and lead the wind, which also affects your Cyclone Bow. It allows your Cyclone Bow to pierce. And then Galeshot, I've been running with Wuthering Wind a lot just for additional bursts of damage when my pet attacks. I've been playing around with Perilous Skies and also any of the Grandmasters. I think this is the one Elite Spec that in PvE, I've been playing with all of the Grandmasters. I've been running a lot with Cloudburst because I've been doing metas and group events, and having a bit more quickness for not only myself but allies is invaluable. If you want to be that pure DPS damage big Chungus, go Galeshot or Shrike. You can really take either. There's probably min-maxing that people have on Snowcrows and certain build testers, but all in all, they both have a place. I see both. This is a little bit more complex in terms of you need to be very aware of your timings and your Hawkeye usage, but if you're not looking for that and just want to use any projectiles like a longbow or a short bow, you probably don't want to use a short bow, but like axes or any other projectile-based attacks, Shrike is a good way to go because it's just projectile-based instead of like specifically needing you to use the Galeshot Cyclone Bow. I have been having a fantastic time playing this Elite Spec. I had such a blast playing it in the beta, and it is still a standout on live. I really genuinely could not have predicted a better version of a long-range type ranger with its interaction with the weapons, with all of the projectile classified abilities and traits, how it's not just about the bow, this bow in particular, it's about all projectiles that the ranger has access to, which is just so thematically tied to an abundance of what ranger has in its kit. So everyone, that is the Galeshot for Visions of Eternity, an incredible ranger elite specialization. If you enjoyed this video, I have a full collection of all the other elite specializations on my channel, so if you are interested about a class and its updates, you can go check those out on my channel. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos coming to you very, very soon. If you'd like to purchase Visions of Eternity, I also have links in my description, which greatly help the channel out. I truly, truly appreciate all of your support. And you can catch me live over on Twitch Fridays and the weekends. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Mwah.